Welcome. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again for our weekly Wednesday webinar series. Today's webinar is on an exploration of why men with severe hemophilia might not want gene therapy. My name is Alsa Murtha, and I am the Manager of Strategic Communications here at the National Hemophilia Foundation. At any point during the webinar, if you would like to ask a question, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And if you are streaming on one of our social media platforms, go ahead and throw that into the chat. We have NHF staff members monitoring these questions, which we're going to post to our speaker at the end of his presentation. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to the community beginning Friday, August 19th. I am joined today by Simon Fletcher. Thank you for taking the time to join us. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you to get started.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me this evening in my time, but this afternoon for you. My name is Simon Fletcher. I'm a research nurse in Oxford. I work at the Oxford University Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust. I'll warn you, you may see hands pop up and down throughout the whole of this thing, as I'm one of these people who can't talk without moving hands at the same time. So these are my disclosures. I didn't know whether this slide was actually necessary or not, but I thought I would put it here because some of the things that I'm talking about tonight in terms of exigency and a couple of the other studies actually as well have been sponsored by pharma, so Unicure, Roche and Hemab Therapeutics. So I just wanted to put that up front so that you are all aware of that. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the background to the actual exigency study and haemophilia in the UK as a whole. So this is the UK, and as you can see, there are roughly 26 haemophilia treatment centres within the UK, mostly focused in England. I'm sad to say, because you can see that there are only 4 in Scotland, 1 in Northern Ireland, and actually only 1 in Wales as well. And that there are roughly, well, I say roughly, there are 6,383 people with haemophilia A in the UK and 1,281 with haemophilia B. And gene therapy, which we're going to be talking about this afternoon, in the UK, these are the most recent figures that we actually have. Though actually, I'm not quite sure how accurate they are. They're taken from the UKHCDO database, but I have a feeling that some haven't been reported, but we've had, according to them, 31 people who've had gene therapy, 22 with haemophilia A and 9 with haemophilia B. The yellow spots on here are actually the dosing centres in the UK. So there's 1 in Southampton and there are actually 3 in London, and the big spot in the middle here is Oxford, for anybody that wants to know. Now the Oxford Centre has been probably the oldest centre in the UK, and it's one of the larger ones. It sees about 259 patients with haemophilia A and about 69 with haemophilia B, and we've actually had 4 people go through gene therapy in the past sort of 7 years, and I've been working there about 10 years now, and the past sort of 6-7 years concentrated very much on the gene therapy side of things. And as part of that, we've collected lots of data over the years about the gene therapy, about the effectiveness, what the levels are in people who've had gene therapy, how they've gone up, how they range over a period of time, what they're doing now. We understand a bit more about the effectiveness of the treatment itself, and sort of the adjunct therapies that we need to do to maintain the levels. So we've got lots of data, and we're slowly but surely starting to sort it and arrange it and present it. But actually, we're not telling a story. We're not telling the story of those people that are wanting gene therapy, have had gene therapy, are thinking about gene therapy, don't want gene therapy. Actually, this qualitative data we're not getting to at the moment, and nobody's really looking into it. And it's one of the things that really interested me with gene therapy was actually the whole idea of people not wanting gene therapy, because when we started doing gene therapy studies within Oxford, we sent information out to all of the patients, all the people that we thought would possibly be interested in it. And we had conversations with them. And one got back to me and said, actually, I don't want gene therapy because if you took away my haemophilia, I wouldn't know who I was. And this really set me thinking, actually, I don't understand enough about haemophilia, and I don't think many people understand enough about haemophilia, what it is to live with haemophilia, because many of the treaters, myself included, aren't haemophiliacs. We don't have haemophilia. I don't know what it is to have a joint bleed. I don't know what it is to have to treat myself day by day or every week with factor. I don't have to give myself intravenous injections. So it was actually this that started the whole process. And the exigency project really came out of that, because we're at a point now where gene therapy is very nearly with us. We've very nearly got the first licensed gene therapy treatment, and we don't have the answers to many of these questions about what it means, who might want it, who might not want it, what it involves on a day-to-day basis going through gene therapy. So and so for me, this really is an urgent need, and it's a demand that is absolutely at the forefront and should be at the forefront of any sort of gene therapy going forward. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to look at actually all of the major stakeholders within stakeholder groups within the UK scene. So we actually, exigency itself is less one study, more a nested group of studies. And we've been looking at different members of the stakeholders. So we've talked to those who have people with haemophilia who've had gene therapy, and just to find out what that was, what they're involved, how they felt about it, what difference it made to them. We've also talked to people who've not had gene therapy yet, who've not been offered it. It's still only available in clinical trials at the moment. So there are people out there who don't have access to the clinical trials facilities around the country, so aren't able to access the therapy. And we wanted to talk to them about what that actually means to them, what they understood about gene therapy and that sort of thing. We also talked to parents of children with haemophilia as well, because even though children can't have haemophilia, I apologize, even though children can't have gene therapy, it's actually important that we begin to talk about gene therapy as early as possible, so that when these children reach an age where they can have gene therapy, then they're prepared, they're armed, they know the questions that they need to ask, they understand more about the treatment itself and whether it's something that's right for them. And I know Kate Kerr, who is one of my colleagues involved in HemeNet with the study, is going to come and talk to you about this particular element of the study in the future. We also talked, and that's what we'll be talking about most of the time this afternoon, is people who do not want gene therapy and actually why they might not want it. And also we've got an arm of people who have been withdrawn or withdrew from gene therapy and just what that actually means to them. And lastly, we've got healthcare professionals as well, because we felt that it was actually important that actually the information that we gain from this study and from all of the arms is actually fed back to the people who are going to help people with haemophilia make decisions in the future about whether gene therapy is appropriate, is right for them, not to make that decision for them, but to help them understand what's involved in the process so that they can make that decision for themselves. So this was what the exigency program is all about. It was to examine the real world experience and the impact of gene therapy in as diverse a community of people and families. That was what was important as well, is that actually that families were involved in this. John Donne, the metaphysical poet, I'm a bit of a poetry nut, I'm afraid to say, said that no man is an island, and certainly no person with haemophilia and no person that goes through gene therapy is an island. They're a member of a family, they're a member of a community, and the whole family and the whole community are involved in that decision, and the repercussions as it goes on, because there's so much that's involved with that. So we wanted to explore what these expectations were in families and patients themselves in the UK, as to just see what the contemporary and future management for people with haemophilia will be. So these are the demographics of the main study itself. So the whole overarching, we've actually done 75 interviews, and we've interviewed 45 people with haemophilia, 10 with haemophilia B and 35 with haemophilia A. We've also spoken to 21 family members, including 11 spouses, partners, and 10 parents. And we've spoken, as I said, to 9 healthcare professionals. So it's still only a small number, and I'll come back to that towards the end. And if we look at those who actually don't want gene therapy, then the demographics for that group, we spoke to actually 10 people with haemophilia, 2 had haemophilia B and 8 had haemophilia A, and the mean age was 34.3 years with a range of 19 to 62. All of them were on prophylaxis, 4 on a standard half-life, 4 on an extended half-life, and 2 on emicizumab. And we had a reported, this was self-reported ABR of 5, because we didn't have access to their care records, so we only had to go on what their self-reported bleed rates were over the period 12 months. So it was less than or equal to 5. Now, I will come back to this in a bit, because that to me sounds like it's actually higher than it really should be. But there seemed to be an acceptance that actually that was an okay bleed rate for some of the participants. And we did 2 focus groups, and we did 1 interview. We did 1 interview basically because one of the participants couldn't make either of the focus groups. So we decided that because the numbers were so low at only having 9 or 10, we would do a single interview and see whether the responses that he was giving were similar to those that we'd had within the focus group itself. So if we look at the main results for this particular element of the study, we came up with 4 main issues that were giving people concern as to why they wouldn't want to take part in gene therapy. One was the lack of long-term safety data, and I'll come into these separately in a little while. The second was lack of perceived treatment burden, and that was their own personal burden of treatment currently and the perceived treatment burden of gene therapy itself. A history of viral infections, and self-identity and its possible loss. So we'll look at these each individually on their own, but it's important to remember that actually some of these issues are actually interconnected, and one concern may fit in with another concern somewhere else, or link in. So certainly from a safety and efficacy point of view, people were concerned that actually they were quite healthy at the moment. They were treated well. The haemophilia didn't bother them on a day-to-day basis. They were able to care for their family as they wanted to. So why did they actually need to risk anything by going into a gene therapy study? And others were concerned that actually that nothing was guaranteed within gene therapy at the moment. That, you know, it's still in a research phase, and nothing is written in tablets of stone. And if you're putting all of this time and effort into it, and at the end of 5 years, then you've only got 2%, then has it been worth all of the time that they've put for that? So the sort of longevity of the treatment was very much a factor in their minds. They wanted to wait until it was until they were sure that it would work and it would last. So that was really very much what was going on within there. And if we look at the treatment burden itself, as I said, treatment burden was very much what their current treatment burden was, but was very much also looking at the treatment burden within gene therapy itself. Many of them had heard that they would have had to, many people had gone through long periods of having to take steroids and immunosuppressive therapy, and they were concerned that actually that would make them feel worse than they do normally. They feel well, they are well. Why would you want to put yourself through that? So there was the concern there. But the problem was there were a lot of Chinese whispers within that, because there is very little data being made available to patient groups, and they felt that actually they weren't getting enough information to be able to let them make the decisions that they wanted to make. And they were also aware as well that actually when they're spoken to about what gene therapy involves, it's, it will involve X, but X is only in the best case scenario, because things may change and you may need to be seen more frequently. So it may be twice a week to begin with, but it could be 3 times, it could be 4 times, depending on what was happening. So there was this constant concern about the burden of treatment within the gene therapy study itself. And some were saying, actually, their treatment, they've got it down to such a degree, it takes 5 minutes every 4 days. They know what their haemophilia means to them. They know how what their treatment is. They know what they can do on such and such days. They know what they can't do, and actually their life is not such a problem. So they don't consider that gene therapy is an option for them. And viral infections. Now, within the UK at the moment, we have the ongoing blood inquiry, and that's been going on for about 5 years now. It first started about 5 years ago, and it's ongoing. And this is bringing back a lot of discomfort, a lot of pain, a lot of anger in a number of patients and a number of people with haemophilia. And they're actually thinking to themselves, it gives them concern. Some are saying it's a hideous irony if in 10 years' time there's a problem with the genetic cure, and we've pushed it as hard as possible for everybody. It wouldn't want to be an agent in history repeating itself. So there is this concern, but equally there are people that were saying that actually they don't think it would ever be the same again. The government, I think the government and the community and the whole country has learned lessons from what happened in the past, but everybody accepts that there are undoubtedly scars, and this whole process of the infected blood inquiry is bringing this to the fore again. And the other issue, the final issue, was that of identity. And as I said right at the start, there was that person that I spoke to who said that if I didn't have my haemophilia, who would I be? And within the group here, we had people saying, it probably sounds daft, but I actually feel that the 41 years of living with haemophilia has turned me into who I am. That identity is really important, because there's a lot of research that's looked at people with long-term conditions and what that means if their condition changes over time or you take that condition away from them. But nothing has been really done about people who have, or nothing that I've been able to find about people who have lifelong conditions that they've had for their whole life, they've grown up with, it's formed a part of who they are, it's part of their identity, whether that's good, whether that's bad, it's not really been looked at. And what does that mean if we suddenly start taking it away from somebody when it's not been their whole life, but it forms a part of who they are? So that was really very much what some people were saying, that actually their identity as a person with haemophilia is important to them, and taking it away was not something that they would really want to think about at that point in time. But there were those that disagreed and just said that actually it's part of who I am. Yes, but I'll get used to not having it if I did have gene therapy. And this whole thing with identity, I think, is quite important, and actually is something that really going forward, we need to investigate more. Yeah, with the exigency project, we've started looking very much at it as well. Emmy and Me was a project I was involved with a few years ago that looked at people with haemophilia A who had inhibitors and were the first cohort to go on to emicizumab as their first prophylactic treatment, really, and the difference that made to their lives. And identity came up in this as well, and people were saying that actually, again, that their haemophilia was part of them, and that having gone on to emicizumab, it was a nice halfway house between where they were and being cured, but it's as far as they would want to go, because their haemophilia is part of who they are. It's made them who they are. They're more resilient because of it, and they feel that they would lose something with that as well. And it's something that we're also finding in a study that we've just started here, looking at people with Glanzmann's thrombasthenia as well, another lifelong condition. And identity is coming forward in that. Again, they're beginning to say that actually, though they've had problems over the years in terms of the bleeding that they've not had treatments in the available to them in the same way that other bleeding conditions have. But actually it's still a part of them, and it's made them who they are. So this is something that we need to kind of understand more before I think we can go any further forward with this, the whole idea of a cure, whatever a cure means. Before we can go any further forward with that, we need to understand what their identity as people with bleeding disorders means to them. So that's really where we are with all of that. And the conclusions really from this particular part of the study, those that don't want gene therapy, is there is a perceived burden of gene therapy trials, and some people really don't want to take on that burden. It's a lot of work to have to do, especially if it doesn't last for the length of time that they want it to. It is still at the moment a one shot and done. You can't have it again, or you don't seem to be able to have it again. Maybe the technology will change over time, and that will change, and there may be a possibility of having further doses down the way. We just don't know at the moment. The side effects of the treatment itself, but also of the immunosuppressives and the steroids that seem to go with it at the moment, seem to be a big problem, and this lack of long-term data and efficacy, and this latent concern about viral infections as well within the UK. And there's also an issue, as I said, of loss of identity and belonging to the haemophilia community. That was part of what they were talking about as well, not just their identity as a person with haemophilia, but their identity as a person of a larger haemophilia community. I do have to say that there are limitations to this. It is only a small study. We've only talked to 45 people with haemophilia in total, and we've only talked to 10 people who don't want gene therapy. So it's only very small numbers, and it's a cohort of people with haemophilia who are actually well treated on the whole. Though, as I would argue that if somebody was having 5 bleeds in a year, actually their treatment isn't as good as it should be. But it's, you know, the UK is a well-resourced country, and patients get good treatment within that. So what this would mean in countries different from the UK, I don't know what it would, whether it would translate in the US. That's something that I would need to listen to you and see what you said about that. But in middle and lower income countries as well, it may be something that just is not even an issue, and it would be, if the treatment is available, we'll take it. So these are things that need to be looked at, and we need to do further study in other countries as well to see whether some of these issues actually translate within there as well. So I would like to thank you. I would also like to thank all of the participants who took part in the studies, also to my co-researchers and to the funders for all of these studies, actually. And I'll just leave you to say that going to have a period of questions as well. But I also have some questions, and if any of you feel that you want to comment on this during the sort of next 20-30 minutes, then I would love to hear, what is your take on gene therapy? Are there any concerns, and if so, what are they? Do you hear people saying that actually they don't want it? What does having haemophilia mean to you, and how important is being a member of the haemophilia community to you in the UK? And I think in from what I understand of the US as well, we're a very individualistic group of people, but within the UK, there's less of a sense of community than what I hear about in the US sometimes. I don't know whether that's true or not, and I would love to hear from you whether that is the case or not. So I'd like to hand back now, and thank you for your listening to me this afternoon. And I'll stop sharing.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was muted this entire time. Oh, holy smokes. I'm sorry, everyone. I asked you a whole question and everything. Okay, so my first question for you is that it appears that the hemophilia A gene therapy results were not that promising. How do you think these results will impact both future research and demand for gene therapy?
From what I've been hearing, I think there is more reticence within the haemophilia A community, and I think people are thinking, actually, we might just hold off for the time being, because actually the technology may change, things may improve over a period of time, and then in 5-10 years time, I might think about it again at that point. But there are those that are thinking, actually, 5 years, my veins are so bad, 5 or 10 years of not having to actually give myself intravenous injections is going to make a big difference to my life. And though it's hard work to begin with in that first 6-12 months time, it's something that I'm willing to think about. So I think the jury is still out on the haemophilia A gene therapy, but certainly haemophilia B looks better, and I think it's just a matter of waiting to find out what people want.
That's great. Thank you. So what did you feel like was the greatest challenge in your research?
I think this whole issue of identity, I certainly don't understand it enough, and I don't think as a treatment community, actually, we understand it enough, because we think to ourselves, okay, we're treating people well with factor replacements or emicizumab or other disruptive therapies. Actually, their lives are reasonably good. There are issues, but I think we don't understand enough about what having haemophilia means to a person who has haemophilia. Is it, how has it affected them? What does it mean to them? How have they incorporated it within their personalities, within who they are? So I think that's really the challenge, is to try and understand that as we go forward, because it will make big differences to how we help people deal with the changes that happen with gene therapy.
That's fantastic. I did want to pull a comment from our Facebook page right now. Bobby said, I think it's great for the young during that phase of increased bleeding. After the age of 20, it's more of an option for convenience. That convenience is subject to each individual's health. I'm surprised that some don't want it based on identity. You won't lose identity or how it shaped you, but it will make life a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
That was really fantastic.
Yeah, and I think it is this whole thing, as we don't understand what it means to people with haemophilia. We've not listened enough to what their haemophilia is for them.
Exactly. Okay, I have another for you. I think that the cost of gene therapy is a concern in the US. If it ever gets approved, some feel it would be cost prohibitive. Prohibitive. Am I saying that right? Oh man, my brain. If there could be more of an uptake in countries outside of the US. Do you have any thoughts on that?
The cost is a big problem, and the cost is a big worry in the UK as well. Even though we have we have the National Health Service, and we don't have to pay in the same way that you do in the US, there is still the concern that actually the funders within the UK are not going to be able to fund £2 million for each individual that goes through gene therapy. So within the UK, we're certainly looking at new funding methods in terms of, do we pay the company a mortgage over a period of 25 years, or do we pay the company for as long as it continues to work with that particular person? All of this reimbursement we're having to look at in the UK as well, because it's a concern, I think, wherever it is going to be, I think, prohibitive in whatever country, really.
Great, thank you. Do you have any next steps in your research, or do you intend to build on your findings?
I would like to build on the findings, and certainly from the other studies that we've done, Emmy and me, and with the Glanzmann's thrombasthenia study, I would like to open this out and look at this whole issue of identity, and whether it is just something and nothing. As I say, we've done small studies at the moment, and it seems to be a reoccurring thing that we're getting, that people are talking about their identity, but it is only small numbers. It's only as we, talk to more people that we actually find that actually we've only talked to those that it's an issue for. It may not be an issue for a great many people. So I think we need to open it up and look at all of the lifelong bleeding conditions, really.
Great, thank you. Did you have any conclusions from your study that you were relatively surprised by?
I think the largest surprise was right at the start, when I was speaking to that person about gene therapy right at the start, was that somebody might not want it. I had always in my own mind thought that if you gave somebody the opportunity to have gene therapy, to lose the day-to-day worry about having bleeds, then for me, it just felt like a no-brainer right at that point in time. And then when somebody turned around and actually said, well, actually, no, I don't want it because it's who I am, that really surprised me. And that's really what set me on the road to actually try and understand more about what gene therapy means. I think that was the main thing, really.
Fantastic. Do you see many pediatric patients and caregivers that are in gene therapy?
At the moment, children aren't able to have gene therapy. It's only for those sort of 18 and above within the clinical trials. There is some talk, I believe, of reducing that age slightly, but certainly because of how gene therapy is delivered to the liver, children's liver turns over much more quickly. So there is a worry that they would actually that the effectiveness wouldn't be as good over a longer period of time. So children aren't able to have it at the moment. Technology might change. Who knows? It might be something in the future. But I think we need to be having conversations about gene therapy with children and with parents at a much earlier age, so that they actually grow up with the idea that gene therapy is available to them and what it means. As I said, I know that you're having Dr. Kate Kerr come and talk to you about that particular element of the study, so I'm not going to steal her thunder with anything that she has to say.
Okay, thank you so much. What does the discussions on identity make you think about the Bleeders community at large, and what local organizations or HTCs can do to change that definition rather than individuals deciding if they fit or not?
Can you say, I missed part of the start of that question,
Oh,
sorry.
sure. Discussion on identity make you think about the bleeding disorders community at large? We'll start there.
Mhm. Um, I think it's difficult to say. As I say, within, we've only spoken to a small number of people, and for them, it was an issue. It may not be so much of an issue in the larger community, and I think we have to wait and listen to what people are saying as to whether that truly is an issue or not. As to what support is should be made available, then I certainly think psychosocial support is absolutely important, not just for gene therapy per se, but for people with bleeding disorders throughout their lifetime. Really, I think it's something that certainly in the UK isn't as available as it should be. I don't know what the availability is within the US, but certainly in the UK, the availability of psychosocial support is I don't want it is poor, actually, to be honest, and we really need to address that. And I think when we do that, we will address this issue of identity and maybe help people to see it as, yes, it is part of their lives, but actually, if it was treated and it was no longer part of their life, that it wouldn't be the loss that some people think it might be.
Great, thank you. Do you have any thoughts on what local organizations or hemophilia treatment centers can do to change the definition of identity rather than the individuals deciding if they fit or not? It's a big one.
Yeah. I don't think it's about changing people's perception of what their identity is. It's about listening to what their idea of identity is. And it's about working with them and with that sense of what their own identity is. It's gene therapy, all of haemophilia treatment isn't and shouldn't be a one size fits all. It's you have all of these options. You have standard half-life, you have extended half-life, you have emicizumab, you have the other disruptive technologies that are available. There's gene therapy. It's a case of listening to what people have to say, listening to what they want to do with their lives, and giving them the options and saying, these are your options, these are your choices. What would you like? What would you like? Not what can we give you?
Awesome. Okay, what is the biggest takeaway you want the audience to walk away with from your discussion today?
I think it's very much what I just said, actually, that the treatment options are there. It's not one size fits all. It's what fits you as an individual. And you have to sit down with your haemophilia treatment center and say what your goals are, what you want. It may only be what you want today, rather than what you want in 5 years' time. If what's important to you is what's important to you in the next week, then discuss that and look at the treatment options that enable you to do what is important to you. And I think that's the takeaway. There is no one size fits all. There is only what fits you, and that may change.
Wonderful. That I am all out of questions for you. If anyone has anything else that they would like to throw into the Q&A, we'll give it a moment. I did, in the meantime, we had someone answer the fourth question that you presented to the audience, which was, I believe, what does having hemophilia mean to you? And let me see if I can find that comment again. Oh, no, I think it might have gotten deleted. Just give me one moment. Let's see. Oh, it did. Gosh darn. Well, I'm sorry. We had a comment and it got deleted. I apologize. Let's see. Alrighty. Well, I guess that is everything. Before we go, would you like to give out your email address to the audience in case they want to email you their answers to that question or those questions?
No problem at all. My email address is simon.fletcher@ouh.nhs.uk.
Wonderful. And
so simon.fletcher@ouh.nhs.uk.
Great. Oh, we have one more question coming into the Q&A. It says, I thought this was specific to A severes. How did they come out with the study?
All of the patient, all of the people that we spoke to had severe haemophilia. So that's that was built into the study itself, because gene therapy is only available at this point in time to people who have severe haemophilia. We only spoke to those people who have severe haemophilia.
Great.
Does that fully answer that question? I'm not quite sure.
We'll see if they add anything else into the Q&A or the chat real quick. The same author comments again, I heard they become mild or moderates.
Yeah, no, that's actually, yeah. So if somebody with severe haemophilia has gene therapy, because we don't know actually what levels they will come out with, they could, some people are coming out with levels that are what we call supranormal, so above 100%. Some people are coming out with levels much lower at sort of 20 to 30%. And we don't know which particular person is going to get what particular level at the moment. So predominantly people are coming out in this mild to moderate and even a bit above moderate area, so sort of anywhere between sort of 20 and say 80%. So they do fall within this sort of mild, moderate, and actually not having haemophilia any longer. But we have no way of predicting actually who will get what level.
Oh, I'm unsure if it's just on my end or as a whole, but we seem to have lost our speaker. Oh, there you are. You're muted. I'm so sorry, Simon.
There we go. I think I dropped out there for some bizarre reason.
You did, just for a moment.
Technology it's a wonderful thing until it doesn't work.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have no idea. It's only as time goes on that we'll begin to understand how long it will last and just what different types of people are likely to get better results. And it's a waiting game, I'm afraid. There's no quick answer.
Okay. We also have a comment of what kind of virus are they using as the sending agent?
At the moment, they're using an AAV virus, which is an adeno-associated virus. So what they do is they actually take the virus, they hollow it out, and they put the DNA in of the factor into this virus, and then they infuse that over about an hour, and then it goes to the liver, infects the liver cells, and then begins to produce factor in the liver cells.
We have another comment of the results sound individual, just like inhibitors.
Yes, it's the quick answer. Yeah, who gets inhibitors and who doesn't? Who knows? Again, what level different people achieve, again, is unknown. We just don't know. The technology is still relatively new, so we are finding out these things as we go along.
Fantastic. Okay, well, wherever you are streaming and watching our webinar today, if you check out our Facebook, our LinkedIn, or our YouTube channel, I'm going to make sure that we go ahead and add in your email address into the description of the webinar today, so anyone can contact you at any point in time. Let's see. And one more comment for you, a very interesting, and thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Awesome.
I hope you have a good day.
Yes. Well, one more time, I just want to thank you, Simon, for taking the time to join this afternoon. We appreciate your time and your expertise. I'd also like to thank each one of our viewers. Please note that this recording on Friday, August 19th at haemophilia.org under the event with all of our archived webinars. Also available in the events tab is our upcoming schedule for our weekly Wednesday webinar series. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, and have a wonderful week.
Thank you.